You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Today, on our Friday review, I'm looking forward to bringing you some of my favorite items from research that I do every single week, literally every single day of every single week. And because I subscribe to all these different research channels and just a lot of my overall favorite products. I'll be bringing you a book and a different detoxification method that we've never talked about before, believe it or not. And some of just the favorite things that I use essentially every day in my life. So what I want to do is, before we get to some of my favorite items that I want to pass on to you, is just talk a little bit about the research that I believe you should look at, and it really is applicable in your own life. So you probably saw before on a previous podcast where I basically went on this long rant. And during that rant, there's certain people out there who have their own agenda, that they're biased when they write a book, they're biased when they make a documentary, and they're biased when they promote their own, agenda, essentially, their dogma. And the problem is, if something doesn't fit within their dogma, they cherry pick individual research studies to prove their point. Now, there are literally hundreds of thousands of research studies done, let's say, on almost an annual basis, right? And you can find any study in the world. There'll be a study there to essentially prove your point. Well, what this doctor did, and he's a very popular doctor, he cherry-picked a study on vitamin D. And he said, see, vitamin D causes more brittle bones. Vitamin D leads to increased bone fractures, especially in women. So I said, this is absolutely absurd, because everything I read on vitamin D research through functional medicine and orthomolecular medicine says that vitamin D is like top 10 easily. And again, when I did my 15 most prescribed supplements by doctors and functional medicine doctors, naturopathic chiropractors, all those great type of practitioners, vitamin D was always top 10, top 15. So I said, what is this person talking about? They have such a huge voice in the industry. Their diet plan is shown in Whole Foods. They have cookbooks. They've been in documentaries. And I said, what is this person looking at? So I always try to keep an open mind. That is one thing about me. I have my beliefs. There's no doubt about that. You know my beliefs. But I always back it up with science, and I always back it up with research. And so I said, let me look at these studies. And so I went on his website. I looked up the research that he's talking about. And he's talking about vitamin D2. And he's talking about vitamin D given at 300,000 IUs at a one-time injection or capsule, or 500,000. Now, this is the problem with a lot of conventionally trained doctors. Again, I'm not coming down on every conventionally trained doctor. I'm not saying that. But their forte is not nutritional supplements. Let's just be honest, right? Traditional naturopathic doctors now, who are going to some of the top schools, orthomolecular medicine specialists, they understand nutritional supplements to a much higher degree. And that's why supplements vary widely. This doctor didn't understand that vitamin D2, unless he's just promoting his own agenda, which is very possible. He didn't understand vitamin D2 is different than vitamin D3. The absorption is completely different. It's like talking about folic acid versus nature folate or methylfolate or 5-MTHF. Your body knows what to do with 5-MTHF or nature folate. It doesn't know what to do with folic acid if you have methylation-based mutations in your genes, and at least 30% of the population do. So that's very important to look at. So the other thing about vitamin D is it makes your blood calcium retentive. So what does that mean? It means that when you take high dosages of vitamin D, like 50,000, 100,000, 300,000, 500,000, which is just ridiculous. Why they would ever do a research study in this is, again, beyond me. I have no idea. They should just consult with doctors that know about nutritional supplements. That would make sense when you're doing this. So anyway, it's a what not to do research study. And then they would understand that taking that larger dose would pull calcium from your bones to make your blood constrict, to get yourself into that constricted fight or flight sympathetic tone. You can obviously reverse that by simply taking magnesium. But in the same case, you shouldn't be taking really more than 35 IUs per pound of body weight anyways per day during the wintertime, which if you're in the above Atlanta, Georgia line in the United States, that would be from October through May. So again, you just have to take everything you read with a grain of salt. I will always back mine up with research. But again, you don't have to trust me either. I'm one source. I'm bringing you information that I use with myself, my family, and everyone in my practice. So believe me, I'm doing that research because I care very much for the people that I work with. But I just want to say that vitamin D is like one of those supplements that's so inexpensive to take that can just do so much for you. And vitamin D just showed in a new study, so very, very recent, just showed that patients who took vitamin D supplements every day had an average of 37% fewer asthma attacks that required oral corticosteroids. Vitamin D also cut the likelihood of emergency department visits, hospitalizations by half. I mean, to me, that's amazing. That means that these people were only given a small dosage, 600, 800 IUs. Such a small dosage. That's like a child's dosage. And they still cut back asthma attacks by more than a third, which is an amazing clinically significant statistic, and also emergency room visits by half. So believe me, nutritional supplements do work. Just remember who your source is and who you're getting it from. All right, that's research study number 1. Research study number 2 is that the olive oil, even if it's extra virgin, that you're using right now most likely is a fraud. It's a fake. And that's because the olive oil industry in the United States, at least, again, the United States is bought and paid for by big food, big pharma. It's just the truth. It's not me against anyone because I'm against big food, but I understand that there's a time and place for pharmaceuticals in emergency care. Believe me, I'm glad that we have that. If anyone is bleeding out, if anyone is just having a stroke, heart attack, any of these things, trust me, I believe me, I represent that and believe in it. There is a form of medicine for everyone. You just have to know when to use it and with who. That's it. So what I'm saying, though, is that the government does not oversee the olive oil industry. And because of that, they found that about 69, 70%, so more than 2/3 of all olive oil on the shelf is not extra virgin olive oil, which means it's very cheap. It's been most likely oxidized, and that it is not pure, and it's not from good quality olives, which means you're not getting those same cancer-fighting benefits, and you're not getting all of those great unoxidized antioxidants to actually help protect your body and decrease inflammation, as shown on many different studies with the Mediterranean diet. So what am I saying? I'm saying that the olive oil that you have is most likely not good for you, but there is a way around this, and it's very, very simple. You can buy an inexpensive brand like the Whole Foods 365 brand. Certainly not the best quality. I'm not going to say that, but it is organic. It is first pressed, and it is extra virgin, and it's only, I think, like $6.99 for a half-liter bottle. So that's very cheap. I mean, most good olive oil is about $20. So that's, 25% of that. That's very, very inexpensive. But you can get other good brands as well. Like, I'm just going to list a couple brands here. This research is actually from, let's see who did the interview with Larry Olmsted, and this was in Bottom Line Reports. So a very reputable magazine report. And other brands like California Olive Ranch, that's their website as well. Cobram Estate. Who else? Oliviers and Company. Zingerman's, and I'll tell you what I do, though. So I always like to give you, so those are some brands that have been tested out that work great. What I do, though, is honestly, I've been to Europe many times. The quality of the food over there is just so much better than the United States, and it's delicious. I mean, because it's actually real food. Like, it's not synthetic, and it's grown in real soil. That's real dirt with real bacteria and real minerals. So you taste that different. The food actually tastes different if there's different minerals in it. That's not apparent, but like that's the truth. So anyway, I get my olive oil usually from Italy or from Greece, and also olive oil from Australia is very high-end, very good quality. May cost more because it's imported, but also they really have the most stringent standards over there. It's very hard. People from Australia ask me all the time, why don't you ship your nutritional supplements to Australia? And that's because the imports over to Australia, everything is just, it's so tightly regulated. And again, our supplements pass every different regulation because they're the highest quality possible. But having said that, it's still really challenging. It would cost me like $30 to ship them to Australia, and a lot of people don't want to pay obviously $30, which is totally understandable. Having said that, Italy, Greece, some of them from Spain and Australia, great. Just look for the extra virgin olive oil, look for the cold pressed, look for the first pressed, which just means it's the first olives, first time through that pressing machine to get you the best quality unoxidized olive oil possible. You can get it in a dark jar. That will help as well. Okay, moving right along. I actually have a call. I have a coaching call, mentoring call coming up in just about 6 minutes. So I'm under the gun here. And a lot of people don't know that I do a lot of mentoring. I shouldn't say I do a lot of mentoring. I do maybe 4 to 5 calls per week with really amazing health professionals, anywhere from personal trainers, MDs, NDs, chiropractors, nutritionists, certified holistic health coaches. And these are some of the most remarkable people in the world. And as my platform grows and as my book comes out and all of these different things, I'm going to bring you more of their representation, meaning like let you know more about more of these people. And a lot of people ask me all the time when I promote other people and I promote other products and I promote other supplements, even though I have supplements, why would you do that when you have your own? Like you're giving money away to competition, whatever it is. It's not about that. I think a lot of people get too caught up in competition and all of these things. I mean, the thing is this, if you're trying to help people, you just do the right thing at every step of the road. Like that's the bottom line. You can't go wrong doing that. And then you don't give out all these vibes into the world about scarcity and there's these competitors and all these things. It's not like that. You can do so much more good by lifting others up. I really believe that. And that's obviously why I do it. And my only goal is just to be really transparent and just bring you great things. But I'll never bring you great things. Even if they're a great person, but they don't have a great product, I will never bring that to you just because, again, I have to believe in it myself and would use it with my own body. So anyway, great people that I work with, and I can't wait to introduce you to more of those people. So I have 2 more things to get through. One, before I get to my clay baths that I'm really just super passionate about, they're so amazing, is I want to talk about mason jars. A lot of people ask me, like, what do you do for water bottles? Do you drink from plastic? Do you do this, and this? Listen, I do my absolute best, just like hopefully you're trying to do your absolute best. At my wellness center, we can't have glass bottles. Like we don't have a dishwasher. We don't know all of these things. So we have Saka water bottles. They're alkaline. They're like, I think 8.2 is the pH, but it's natural. It's from a spring. It's a Turkish spring. And yes, I understand the importing and the plastics. Again, we do our best. It's BPA free. But when I'm home, we use glass, and we use glass pretty much exclusively. And the nice thing is we use something called mason jars. Now, you already know about mason jars, which is great. We use them for everything now. We use them for bottling leftovers, for sauces. But namely what I do is I actually use these mason jars to take my smoothie with me in the morning. So they're 16-ounce mason jars. I'm going to link this up. And these mason jars, the nice thing about them, they cost $1. It's amazing. They're like glass jars, but you drink from them. So I fill up, most of you know that I do a huge smoothie in the morning. And so I have 2 16-ounce mason jars filled up. The extras, I make more. I give that to my girls, my wife in the morning. It's got my daily fruit and vegetable blend powder in there. And I've been using the morning, but a lot of times I'll do the lemon water as well. Sometimes with the greens. Sometimes I throw the greens in my smoothie. And I use, obviously, my daily nutritional support powder. Anyway, look up my smoothies and you'll get all the ones that I do. I literally do those smoothies every single day. And so what I do is then I bring those with me and I drink one, pretty quickly. And then the other one I drink like an hour later. For me, this is just really nice time-released energy through my morning. And it's super hydrates my body. I tell you, I've said this before, but I don't need caffeine when I super hydrate every cell in my body. Okay, so I'm going to link that up in the show notes. Just go to today's show. Just go to stephencabral.com/podcast, and you will see today's show under the Friday review. Okay. Next up, last up, and I am going to talk about clay baths. I don't know if you've ever heard about them before. I've heard about them, well, let's see. I would say maybe about 9 years ago, when I started to get much more deep into Ayurvedic medicine. So keep in mind, Ayurvedic medicine knew about all of these things. Like, it's shocking how they knew about it, but we won't get into that today. 6,000 plus years ago. So again, I'm not going to get into how they knew all of this back then, but the magnetic properties of clay, and there's some great books in this, so you can look up. One of the books I read literally a decade ago is called Our Earth, Our Cure. That's an old school book, probably not in print anymore, but you might be able to find a used copy of that. Really great. Another book on this is called The Clay Cure, Natural Healing from the Earth. So both of these talk about ingesting bentonite clay internally, meaning like you can actually drink bentonite clay, and helps pull a lot of heavy metals out of the body. But what I want to talk about is I actually want to talk about using it externally. So for thousands of years, people have taken mud baths. But remember, it has to be very specific clay. It has to be like a bentonite clay. Just use bentonite clay. Let's just keep things simple. I could get really complex into how all of these things work, but just keep in mind that certain clays actually have magnetic properties, which they're ionized, which allows them to then draw mercury, cadmium, lead, aluminum right out of the body. They work amazingly, amazingly well. And so what you do is you actually just put about 2 cups of clay. Remember, when you have bentonite clay, the real stuff, you can't use a metal spoon or utensil. You just have to pour that into like a plastic or whatever cup that you can get, not a stainless steel cup, and you pour 2 cups into your bathtub as the water's running so that it just disperses, and then you can mix it around with your hand, and you soak in that hot clay bath for anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes for as long as you want, 2 hours if you'd like, and you just add more hot water to that. So the amazing thing about this, though, is it's like an Epsom salt bath. An Epsom salt bath is what I would recommend for people that are stressed and they're looking to detoxify as well, because it's magnesium sulfate. The sulfur helps with phase 2 detoxification. The magnesium helps with calming the body. But I really like clay baths as well to mix things up. One, they're phenomenal for psoriasis, eczema, and skin-based conditions or acne. They're also great for, like I just said, heavy metal toxicity, namely lead, mercury, aluminum, cadmium. Works fantastically well. Now, it works for everything, but that is where it works really, really great. So you can literally slather it on your entire body, and then you can shower off after it dries, which would be about 20, 30 minutes later, or you can just take a really relaxing clay bath. And again, I'll link up some clay for you, but these things are under $20. So the amazing bargain. Again, don't use metal because these are magnetic-based properties. It can draw the metal right out of the utensil as well. And it can deionize or demagnetize the clay as well. So that's really important that you keep it in these plastic containers, not metal-based containers. Or you can use your mason jar that I just told you about and actually store it in glass, and that would be fine as well. So hopefully you enjoyed all of these items today. Really, honestly, Friday Reviews are one of my favorite shows because I get to share with you many things that I've used in the past. In a future episode, I'm going to have to tell you about some of the stories of how we used clay masks and clay baths when I was over in Sri Lanka and India, and how really fantastic they were. People loved them. They actually felt more energized after they got out of a clay bath. So what we did was that we actually had people get in a clay bath, but then keep the clay on their body and then actually lie out in the sun. And that draws, so again, if you learn about the properties, that then hardens the clay and draws the heavy metals out of the body to an even further degree. Lots of great stories from when I was over there. I do plan on revisiting some of the clinics and doctors that I studied with in the past and going to new clinics in India and Sri Lanka as well over the next year or two. And I'll do a lot of filming while I'm over there too, because I met so many amazing people, and I can't wait to show you. I'm telling you, this is next level stuff. And this is the thing. I'm telling you, you can't learn this in the US. So, although there are amazing naturopathic doctors coming out of some of the top schools like Bastyr and Southwest and other schools as well, Bridgeport, they're all fantastic. Don't get me wrong. Fantastic. You can't learn what I'm talking about right now unless you get up and get out of the US to Germany, to the Netherlands where I studied, to China, to India, to all of these places. And it broadens your perspective. But that is my time for today. I appreciate you once again tuning in, and I can't wait to answer all of our community questions tomorrow and Sunday on the House Call edition. So please tune back in for those shows. And again, as always, if this show can help anyone you know, please do feel free to pass it along to them. Take care. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stevencabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.